The dim red glow of emergency lighting cast long shadows across Orion Station's central command deck. Through the reinforced observation dome, Earth hung like a blue marble against the backdrop of infinite darkness, serene and unaware of the crisis unfolding 384,000 kilometers away. Dr. Maya Joe's fingers trembled slightly as they danced across the holographic interface. For 6 years, she had monitored the cosmos for signs of intelligent communication as the station's lead xenolinguist. The Orion Station, humanity's foremost extraterrestrial observation outpost, had been built with one primary purpose: to listen. But in all those years of silence, Maya had never expected to hear this. "Commander Ellis, I need verification on this signal," she called out, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Station Commander Ellis drifted over in the low-gravity environment, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing alert on Maya's console. "What have you got, Zoe?" "Multi-frequency transmission from the Algara system. It's structured, sir. Deliberately patterned." Maya pulled up the visualization matrix, revealing oscillating waves that formed unmistakable mathematical sequences. "And it's repeating. 3 short pulses, 3 long, 3 short again." Ellis's eyes widened. "SOS?" "Not exactly, sir. The pattern is similar to our historical distress call, but it's being transmitted across 17 different frequency bands simultaneously, each slightly phase-shifted. It's far more complex than anything we've used." Maya adjusted the display, highlighting particular patterns. "But the intent is unmistakable. This is a distress call." "How can you be sure it's not just some kind of natural phenomenon?" Ellis asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Maya gestured to the waveform analysis. "Natural phenomena don't transmit prime number sequences as a foundation for mathematical communication, sir. And they certainly don't embed geometric progressions that map to a 3-dimensional coordinate system." She took a deep breath. "Someone out there is asking for help, desperately." The year was 2475. Humanity had expanded throughout the solar system, establishing colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Self-sufficient habitats housed millions beyond Earth's atmosphere. Yet, despite this expansion, encounters with extraterrestrial intelligence had been vanishingly rare. 3 confirmed contacts in the last century, all with civilizations that had chosen to maintain their distance after initial exchanges. Earth's Strategic Council had adopted a policy of minimal intervention in alien affairs. Observation, careful communication when initiated by others, but never interference. It had seemed prudent, given humanity's violent history and the unknown variables of interstellar politics. But this was different. "I've isolated linguistic patterns embedded within the mathematical framework," Maya continued, bringing up another display. "Based on comparative analysis with the Ilaran language samples we received during the 2442 exchange, I believe this is coming from their civilization." Ellis's expression darkened. "The Ilarans? They're over 70 light-years away. How are we receiving this in real time?" "They must have developed faster-than-light communications since our last contact. The signals utilizing quantum entanglement principles we've only theorized about." Maya's voice grew urgent. "Commander, I've been studying this for the past 6 hours. I've run every analysis protocol we have. This isn't just a distress call. It contains data packets, information about whatever is happening." She pulled up the preliminary translation, and both of them fell silent as the message revealed itself. "To any civilization who hears our plea. Algara system under systematic extermination by Bioforge Division. 3 planets fallen. Billions dead. Final stronghold on Algara 2, holding but failing. We have no offensive capability to match them. If there exists mercy in the cosmos, help us. Coordinates and tactical information enclosed. We are the last of the Ilarans." Ellis straightened his posture. Military training taking over. Joe, keep working on the data packets. Extract everything you can. Tactical information, force assessments, whatever they're sending. I'm contacting the Solar Fleet Command. As Ellis moved away to the secure communications terminal, Maya turned back to her console, her heart racing. The Alarans, a peaceful, artistically brilliant species who had shared musical compositions and philosophical treatises during their brief contact with humanity, were facing extinction. And humanity had never responded to an interstellar distress call before. The holographic projection of Colonel Julian Ross filled the central briefing room of Orion Station. His weathered face, framed by shortly cropped silver hair, bore the weight of 3 decades of military service. As commander of Earth's solar fleet, he represented humanity's ultimate defensive capability. "Dr. Joe, run me through your analysis one more time," he said, his voice carrying the slight delay of transmission from Earth orbit. Maya stood, activating her presentation matrix. The distress signal contains approximately 16 terabytes of compressed data. Colonel, we've managed to decrypt roughly 60% so far. She displayed a star chart of the Algera system. The Alarans are under attack by what they call the Bioforge Division, an apparent military scientific organization with technology significantly beyond the Alarans' capabilities. "And beyond ours?" Ross asked sharply. "In some aspects, yes. In others, no. Their propulsion systems appear comparable to our hyperspace gates, perhaps slightly more efficient. Their weapons technology focuses heavily on biological agents rather than conventional or energy weaponry, which is actually an area where our defenses are quite robust, thanks to the Europa plague of 2389. Ross nodded. "What about numbers? Fleet composition?" "The Alarans report approximately 600 vessels of varying sizes, organized into 3 attack groups. They've already devastated 3 of the 5 inhabited planets in the Algara system." Maya's voice faltered slightly. "Casualty estimates exceed 12 billion Alarans." A heavy silence fell over the briefing room. "And how much time do they have left?" Ross finally asked. "Based on the attack pattern and the defensive capabilities they've detailed, their final stronghold on Algera 2 will likely fall within 2 Earth weeks, perhaps less." Ross's holographic form paced back and forth, hands clasped behind his back. "Dr. Joe, you're our foremost expert on the Alarans. Tell me about them. Who are we potentially risking our fleet to save?" Maya closed her eyes briefly, collecting her thoughts. "The Alarans are a highly advanced civilization in terms of art, philosophy, and certain technological domains, particularly medicine and architecture. During our brief contact in 2442, they shared medical knowledge that helped us cure 3 previously incurable genetic disorders. Their society values harmony and intellectual advancement above all else. And militarily? Essentially pacifistic. They maintain defensive capabilities sufficient to deter piracy and handle natural disasters, but nothing that would classify them as a martial society. Their physiology itself is rather fragile by human standards. They evolved on a low-gravity world with minimal environmental threats." Ross nodded slowly. "In other words, they're facing extinction because they never needed to become warriors." "Precisely, Colonel." The hologram flickered as Ross received information from an aide off-screen. "The Strategic Council is convening in 1 hour to discuss the situation. Dr. Joe, you'll need to present your findings. I'll ensure you have secure access to the session." "Yes, Colonel." As the transmission ended, Commander Ellis approached Maya. "What do you think they'll decide?" Maya stared at the data streams still flowing across her console, carrying the desperate pleas of a dying civilization. "I don't know," she said quietly, "but I'm going to make sure they understand exactly what's at stake." The Strategic Council of Earth convened virtually, its 24 members appearing as holographic projections within the secure chamber. Representatives from every major power block on Earth and its colonies sat in solemn contemplation as Maya finished her presentation. In conclusion, she said, the Alaran civilization faces complete extinction within approximately 14 Earth days, unless they receive external assistance. Their final transmission included detailed tactical information about the Bioforge Division forces and hyperspace coordinates for rapid deployment to the Algera system. They are essentially providing us everything we would need to mount a rescue operation. Council Chairperson Tanaka leaned forward, her aged face lined with concern. Thank you, Dr. Joe. Colonel Ross, what is your military assessment of this situation? Ross stood at attention beside Maya. Madam Chairperson, members of the Council, based on the information provided by the Alarans, I believe the Solar Fleet could mount an effective intervention. The Bioforge Division possesses advanced technology, but not significantly beyond our capabilities. Their primary advantage appears to be in biological warfare agents, an area where our fleet has robust countermeasures following the Europa incident. And the risks to our own forces? Asked Councillor Mbeki of the African Federation. Substantial but calculable, Ross replied. I estimate casualties between 5 and 15% of deployed forces, depending on numerous variables. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. 15% casualties for an alien race we barely know? This would violate our long-standing non-intervention policy. What precedent would this set for future distress calls? Chairperson Tanaka raised her hand for silence. One at a time, please. Councillor Chen of the East Asian Coalition, you have the floor. A stern-faced woman nodded. This is madness. We have maintained peace in our corner of the galaxy, precisely because we don't involve ourselves in extraterrestrial conflicts. The moment we deploy our fleet to another star system to engage in combat, we announce to the galaxy that humans are a warrior species ready to project military power beyond our borders. The diplomatic ramifications could be severe. Councillor Rodriguez of the Americas Alliance countered immediately. And what message do we send if we ignore a direct plea for help from a peaceful civilization being systematically exterminated? That humanity will stand by and watch genocide? The Alarans shared medical knowledge that has saved millions of human lives. We owe them this. Back and forth the arguments went, until Maya could no longer remain silent. Distinguished councillors, she interrupted, her voice cutting through the debate. The room fell quiet at her breach of protocol. Forgive my interruption, but there's something you're all missing. Chairperson Tanaka raised an eyebrow but nodded for her to continue. The Alarans contacted us specifically. Not any of the other spacefaring civilizations we know exist within their communication range. Us. Humans. Do you know why? She paused, looking around the virtual chamber. Because they've been studying us since our first contact. They know our history. They know we evolved on a high-gravity death world that forced us to become strong, clever, and sometimes violent to survive. They know we fought terrible wars, but also built lasting peace. Maya's voice grew more passionate. The Alarans called us because they recognize what we are. Deathworlders. Creatures forged in the crucible of a harsh planet that bred warriors. Something they never had to become. She took a deep breath. They're calling the most dangerous species they know, because they need those who understand warfare to save them from extinction. Silence hung in the chamber for several long moments. Colonel Ross cleared his throat. Dr. Joe is correct in her assessment. The Alaran transmission specifically references Earth as a cradle of guardian predators. They see something in humanity that they believe can save them. Councillor Mbeki spoke up. What do we know about this Bioforge division? Are we potentially interfering in a legitimate internal conflict? Maya shook her head emphatically. The data packets indicate the Bioforge division is not an Alaran splinter group. They appear to be a previously unknown species or organization that arrived without warning and began systematic planetary assault. There was no declaration of war, no demands, just immediate attack. And what might they do if we interfere? asked Counselor Chen. Turn their attention to us. Potentially, Ross acknowledged. But they would have done so eventually anyway if they're expanding through that sector of space. Better to face them with the Alarans providing intelligence and their remaining resources, than to wait until they arrive at our doorstep, after having consumed all Ilaran knowledge and technology. Chairperson Tanaka called for a brief recess, during which the council members conferred privately. When they reconvened 30 minutes later, their demeanor had shifted. "We have reached a decision," Tanaka announced. By a vote of 16 to 8, the Strategic Council authorizes the activation of Operation Deathworlders Shield. Colonel Ross, you are hereby ordered to deploy the Solar Fleet to the Algera system, with the mission of preventing the extinction of the Ilaran civilization and neutralizing the threat posed by the Bioforge Division. Maya felt her knees weaken with relief. "Dr. Zhou," Tanaka continued, "you will accompany the mission as our chief liaison with the Ilarans. Prepare for immediate departure. This council expects regular updates as the situation develops." She looked around the chamber solemnly. "For the first time in our history, humanity goes to war beyond our solar system. May we prove worthy of the trust placed in us." As the council session ended, Ross turned to Maya, his expression grave. "Congratulations, Doctor. You've just convinced humanity to fight its first interstellar war. Now we need to win it." The fleet assembled in Earth's orbit was magnificent and terrifying. 67 warships, ranging from agile corvettes to the massive dreadnought Thermopylae, formed the core of Operation Deathworlders Shield. Support vessels, including hospital ships, logistics carriers, and specialized electronic warfare platforms, brought the total to 103. Maya watched the gathering armada from the observation deck of the command carrier Horizon, the vessel that would serve as Colonel Ross's flagship. The ship hummed with activity as final preparations were made for what would be humanity's longest military deployment. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice behind her. Maya turned to find Captain Elise Kagawa, the Horizon's commanding officer. "I've never seen anything like it," Maya admitted. Is this the entire solar fleet?" "About 70% of our heavy combat vessels," Kagawa replied. "Plus, specialized units from every major military power on Earth. Those sleek black ships with the red markings, Special Forces transports. The ones with the blue stripes are from the Martian Defense League, best pilots in the system." Maya nodded, trying to process the scale of the response. "How long until we depart?" 12 hours. Colonel Ross wants to brief all ship commanders in person before we make the jump." Kagawa studied Maya's expression. "Having second thoughts, Doctor?" "No," Maya said firmly. "But the reality of what we're undertaking is setting in. We're traveling 70 light-years to fight an enemy we've never seen, to save a species most humans have never heard of." Kagawa smiled thinly. "Just another day in the solar fleet. Doctor, speaking of which, Colonel Ross has requested your presence in the Strategic Command Center. The latest data packets from the Ilarans have been decoded." Maya followed Kagawa through the maze-like corridors of the massive vessel. Crew members saluted as they passed, many casting curious glances at Maya, the civilian xenolinguist who had somehow catalyzed humanity's first interstellar military campaign. The Strategic Command Center buzzed with controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed ship deployments, weapons inventories, and simulation results of various combat scenarios. At the center of it all stood Colonel Ross, surrounded by his senior staff. "Dr. Zhou," he acknowledged as she approached. "Good timing. We've just finished processing the latest Ilaran transmission." He gestured to the main tactical display, which showed a detailed map of the Algera system. 5 planets orbited a yellow star similar to Earth's sun, though 2 were now marked with ominous red X symbols. "Algara 3rd and V have fallen completely," said Admiral Helena Velez, the fleet's tactical commander. "Algara 4 is under heavy assault but still holding in some regions. The main Ilaran resistance is concentrated here, On Algara 2 and its largest moon. Maya studied the display, noting the positions of the Bioforge Division forces, represented by pulsing black triangles. Their attack pattern seems methodical, almost like a harvesting operation rather than a conventional military conquest. That's exactly what our analysts believe, Ross confirmed. They're not just killing Ilarans, they're collecting specimens, technology, and data. The question is, why? Before Maya could respond, a communications officer interrupted. Colonel, we're receiving a real-time transmission from the Ilaran command. They're requesting to speak directly with our leadership. Ross straightened his uniform. Put it through to the main display. The tactical map disappeared, replaced by the image of an Ilaran. Maya had seen recordings from the 2442 contact, but never a live transmission. The alien's delicate features, reminiscent of Earth's extinct lemurs, but with iridescent skin that shifted colors with emotional states, currently displayed a pale blue hue that Maya recognized as extreme stress. This is Ambassador Ilarathos of the Ilaran Concord, the alien said, its voice melodious despite the obvious tension. Am I addressing the leadership of the human military expedition? Ross stepped forward. I am Colonel Julian Ross, commander of Earth's solar fleet. We received your distress call and are preparing to depart for the Algera system within hours. The Ilaran's skin rippled with flashes of golden relief. Then there is still hope. Colonel, I must convey our profound gratitude. The decision your people have made to risk yourselves for our survival will be remembered in whatever future the Ilarans may have. Ambassador Thus, Maya said, stepping into view. I am Dr. Maya Zhou, xenolinguist and liaison for this mission. Can you update us on your current situation? Recognition flickered across the ambassador's features. Dr. Zhou, your work on translating our initial communications was exceptional. I only wish we were meeting under better circumstances. The Ilaran's skin darkened. Our situation deteriorates by the hour. Algora the Four's defenses have been breached at multiple points. We estimate complete collapse within 36 of your Earth hours. That will leave only Algora 2 and its moon as our final stronghold. How many of your people remain? Ross asked. Approximately 1.5 billion on Algora 2 and its moon. Less than 1/10 of our total population before the Bioforge attacks began. The ambassador's voice wavered. We have concentrated our remaining defensive capabilities around our final evacuation centers, but it won't be enough to repel the next major assault. Ross leaned forward. Ambassador, we need to know everything you can tell us about the Bioforge Division, their capabilities, weaknesses, patterns, anything that might give us an advantage. We have compiled all our intelligence into data packets included with our transmissions. Those replied. But I can tell you what we've learned most recently. The Bioforge forces are not a single species, but appear to be a coalition of some kind, united under a leadership structure we don't fully understand. Their ground troops consist primarily of genetically engineered organisms, living weapons created specifically for warfare. And their fleet? Admiral Velez asked. Their vessels are partially organic, living ships integrated with mechanical components. They self-repair to a degree, which has made them difficult to destroy permanently. The ambassador's skin flickered with currents of deep purple, a sign of profound distress. But their most terrifying capability is their adaptive biological warfare. They release tailored pathogens that specifically target Ilaran physiology. Entire cities have fallen without a single energy weapon being fired. Maya exchanged worried glances with Ross. Biological warfare on that scale was horrifying, and potentially a threat to the human forces as well. Ambassador, Maya said carefully, if these biological agents are so effective against your people, what's to prevent them from engineering something similar against humans once we arrive? That is a risk, those acknowledged. But it takes them time to analyze a new species and develop targeted bioweapons. The initial attacks against us used conventional weapons. The engineered pathogens came later, after they had captured and studied enough of our people. The ambassador leaned closer to the camera. If your forces can strike decisively before they can adapt, you may avoid our fate. Ross nodded grimly. We understand. Ambassador Thos, we will depart within 12 hours. The journey through hyperspace will take approximately 3 days. Can your remaining forces hold that long? We must, the Alaran replied simply. We have nowhere else to go. As the transmission ended, Ross turned to his assembled officers. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the situation. We have 3 days of hyperspace travel to prepare for what may be the most significant military engagement in human history. I want every ship at combat readiness, every weapon system checked and rechecked, and every soldier, pilot, and crew member fully briefed on what we're facing. He looked directly at Maya. Dr. Joe, I need you to work with our xenobiology teams. If the Bioforge is using biological warfare, we need to understand Ilaran physiology well enough to potentially develop countermeasures. Yes, Colonel, Maya responded, though the enormity of the task made her stomach clench. Admiral Velez, prepare a battle plan based on the Ilaran intelligence. Assume we'll arrive to find Algara 2 under direct assault. Velez nodded sharply. Already working on it, sir. Ross looked around the command center, his expression resolute. Humanity has never fought an interstellar war, but we've been preparing for this possibility for centuries. The Ilarans called us Deathworlders, creatures evolved in harsh conditions, forged by adversity into warriors. It's time to show the galaxy what that really means. The journey through hyperspace was both faster and more harrowing than Maya had anticipated. The massive hyperspace gate in Earth orbit had generated a stable wormhole large enough for the entire fleet to transit. But maintaining formation during the passage required precise navigation. The human body wasn't designed for hyperspace travel. The subtle dimensional shifts caused nausea, disorientation, and in some cases, hallucinations. Maya spent most of the 3-day journey working with the fleet's xenobiology team, analyzing the Ilaran biological data and helping develop potential countermeasures against Bioforge weapons. When she wasn't in the lab, she was conducting briefings for the Special Forces teams that would be deployed to the surface of Algara 2, if necessary. On the 3rd day, with less than 6 hours until their arrival in the Algara system, Colonel Ross called a final command briefing. Maya joined the senior officers in the Horizons Tactical Center, where a detailed holographic model of the Algara system displayed the latest intelligence from Ilaran transmissions. The situation has deteriorated faster than anticipated. Ross began without preamble. Algara 4 has fallen completely. Bioforge forces have begun their assault on Algara 2 and its moon. Ilaran defensive positions are holding for now, but they estimate breakthrough at multiple points within 18 hours. Admiral Velez gestured to the holographic display, highlighting the positions of Bioforge vessels. Based on the Ilaran data, we'll emerge from hyperspace here, approximately 0.8 astronomical units from Algara 2. This puts us behind the primary Bioforge assault fleet, potentially allowing us to catch them in a pincer movement between our forces and the remaining Ilaran defenses. Battalion Commander Kaito Nakamura, leader of the Special Forces contingent, spoke next. My teams are prepared for immediate deployment to the surface of Algara 2. Priority targets include the main evacuation centers, where the highest concentration of Ilaran civilians are gathered. What about the biological weapons? Maya asked. Have we developed effective countermeasures? Dr. Athena Ruiz, the fleet's chief medical officer, responded. We've synthesized broad-spectrum neutralizing agents based on the Ilaran data. They should provide our ground forces with protection against known Bioforge pathogens. Additionally, our combat armor has been upgraded with enhanced filtration systems. And if they develop new pathogens targeting humans? Ross pressed. We've prepared rapid response protocols, Ruiz assured him. Our medical ships are equipped with advanced genetic sequencing and bioengineering capabilities. If we encounter new biological agents, we can analyze and develop countermeasures within hours rather than days. Ross nodded, satisfied. Very well. Here's the battle plan. He expanded the tactical display. We'll emerge from hyperspace in attack formation Alpha. Corvette squadrons will immediately move to engage Bioforge picket ships before they can sound the alarm. Cruiser groups will target their communication arrays to isolate their fleet elements from each other. The display animated, showing the planned movements of the human fleet. Meanwhile, our dreadnoughts and heavy cruisers will drive straight for the heart of their main battle group here. Ross continued, highlighting a cluster of large enemy vessels. Special Forces transports will use the chaos of the initial engagement to slip through to these coordinates, provided by the Alarans. Direct approach vectors to their major evacuation centers. Admiral Velas added, the Alarans have indicated they'll commit their remaining defensive fleet to a coordinated attack once we engage. It's not much, about 40 combat-capable vessels, but it should help divide the Bioforge's attention. Maya studied the plan, impressed by its boldness, but concerned about its risks. What about civilian evacuations? Even if we secure the evacuation centers, where will 1.5 billion Alarans go? That's where our support fleet comes in, Ross explained. We've configured our largest transport vessels to accommodate Ilaran physiology. They can hold approximately 10 million refugees each. It won't be comfortable, but it will keep them alive until we can secure their homeworld or establish safe havens elsewhere. Maya did the quick math. That's still only enough for a fraction of their population. The Ilarans have their own evacuation ships, Nakamura noted. Our primary goal is to secure their launch sites long enough for them to get their people off planet. Ross checked the time. We exit hyperspace in 5 hours and 26 minutes. I want all stations at battle readiness in 4 hours. Final equipment checks, weapon systems primed, all personnel at combat stations. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each officer. What we do in the next 24 hours will be remembered for centuries, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. We are fighting not just for the Ilarans, but for the principle that genocide will not be tolerated in our corner of the universe. As the meeting disbanded, Ross asked Maya to remain behind. When they were alone, his professional demeanor softened slightly. Dr. Joe, I've arranged for you to observe the battle from the Auxiliary Command Center. It's well protected and will give you access to all tactical information without putting you in the direct line of fire. Maya shook her head. With respect, Colonel, I request permission to accompany Battalion Commander Nakamura's team to the surface. Ross's eyebrows shot up. That's an active combat deployment. Doctor, you're a linguist, not a soldier. I'm also the only human who has studied Ilaran communication patterns extensively, Maya countered. The Special Forces teams will need someone who can communicate directly with Ilaran civilians and military personnel on the ground, especially if electronic communications are compromised. We have translation software for that, Ross argued. Software that I programmed, Colonel. But software can't read the color changes in Ilaran skin that convey emotional states and contextual meanings. In a crisis situation, those nuances could be critical. Ross studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're asking. Groundside deployment will be extremely dangerous. The Bioforge has already demonstrated their willingness to use weapons of mass destruction. Maya met his gaze steadily. I understand the risks, but I didn't convince the Strategic Council to send our fleet 70 light-years just to hide in a safe room while others do the fighting. The Ilarans called to us for help. I want to look them in the eye when we deliver it. After a long moment, Ross nodded reluctantly. Very well. Report to Battalion Commander Nakamura for immediate combat preparation. You'll be assigned to his command team. Thank you, Colonel. As Maya turned to leave, Ross added, "Dr. Joe, the Alarans called us Deathworlders because we evolved on a harsh planet that forged us into warriors. But that's only half of what humanity is. Remember that when you're down there?" Maya nodded, understanding his meaning. "I will." Emerging from hyperspace was like breaking through the surface of a dark ocean into blinding light. The fleet computers compensated instantly, adjusting the view screens to filter the sudden influx of radiation from Algara's sun. Maya, already secured in a combat transport with Nakamura's Special Forces team, felt the subtle shift as normal space reasserted itself. "Fleet emergence complete," announced the transport pilot. "All vessels accounted for. Initiating combat operations." Through the tactical display, Maya watched as the human fleet exploded into action. Corvette squadrons accelerated at tremendous speed toward the unsuspecting Bioforge picket ships. Cruisers formed up into attack formations, weapon systems powering to full capacity. The massive dreadnoughts, led by the Thermopylae, moved with surprising grace toward the heart of the Bioforge fleet. For a brief, precious moment, they had the element of surprise. Then alarms began blaring as enemy vessels detected the human armada bearing down on them. "They've spotted us," Nakamura commented unnecessarily, his face impassive behind the faceplate of his combat armor. "Right on schedule." The first exchanges of fire were visible even from their position, brilliant energy beams slicing through space, missile contrails arcing between vessels, explosions blooming like silent flowers in the vacuum. The corvettes had successfully engaged the picket ships, preventing them from warning the main fleet. "All Special Forces transports, execute infiltration pattern Delta," came Admiral Velez's voice over the command channel. "You have a narrow window while their main forces are engaging our fleet. Make it count." Their pilot acknowledged the order, and the transport lurched as it accelerated toward Algara 2, now visible as a blue-green sphere growing larger by the second. 11 other transports fell into formation alongside them, protected by a squadron of fighter escorts. Maya checked her equipment one last time. Combat armor modified to fit her civilian frame, sidearm she hoped she wouldn't need to use, and most importantly, the advanced communication unit that would allow her to interface with Alaran systems. "Approaching Alaran defense perimeter," the pilot announced. "Receiving recognition signals. They're clearing us through." On the tactical display, Maya could see the remaining Alaran defense ships moving to engage the Bioforge vessels from the opposite direction, creating the planned pincer movement. It was working. The surprise appearance of the human fleet had thrown the Bioforge forces into momentary disarray. "Entering atmosphere in 30 seconds, the pilot called out. "Brace for turbulence." The transport shuddered as it hit Algara 2's upper atmosphere. Through the viewports, Maya could see the glow of superheated air surrounding them. The tactical display updated to show their destination, a massive Alaran evacuation center built into the side of a mountain range, currently under siege by Bioforge ground forces. "Dr. Joe," Nakamura said, his voice calm despite the rattling of the transport. "Stay close to me once we land. My team will create a secure perimeter. Your priority is to establish communication with the Alaran leadership and coordinate evacuation protocols." Maya nodded, her mouth too dry for speech. The abstract concept of an interstellar rescue mission had suddenly become very concrete and immediate. "Ground fire detected," the pilot announced tensely. "Evasive maneuvers." The transport lurched sickeningly as it dodged energy beams from below. The fighter escorts dove toward the sources of fire, weapons blazing. "LZ is hot," Nakamura informed his team. "Prepare for combat deployment." The Special Forces soldiers, 30 men and women representing the elite fighting forces of Earth, checked their weapons one final time. Their powered combat armor hummed softly as advanced systems came online, transforming them from mere humans into something more. The embodiment of a Deathworlders evolution. Touchdown in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The transport hit the ground with a bone-jarring impact, its landing struts absorbing most of the shock. Instantly, the rear hatch blew open, and Nakamura's team poured out in perfect formation, creating a defensive perimeter around the vessel. Maya followed them out into chaos. The sky above Algera 2 was filled with streaking lights, orbital combat between human, Ilaran, and Bioforge vessels. The ground around them showed evidence of heavy fighting, craters, burning vegetation, and structures reduced to rubble. In the distance, the massive evacuation center was visible, a gleaming structure built into the mountainside, its lower levels surrounded by defensive barriers, where Ilaran security forces were desperately holding back waves of attackers. And those attackers... Maya felt her blood run cold at the sight of them. The Bioforge ground forces were unlike anything she had imagined. Not soldiers in the conventional sense, but biological constructs clearly engineered for war. Some resembled massive insectoid creatures with integrated weapon systems, growing directly from their carapaces. Others were more humanoid, but with grotesquely enhanced musculature and redundant organs visible through translucent skin. "Secure a path to the evacuation center," Nakamura ordered, and his team moved with practiced precision, advanced weapons cutting down the nearest Bioforge constructs. Maya stayed close behind Nakamura as they pushed forward, her scientific mind cataloging the horrors around her, even as her survival instincts screamed for her to run. The Bioforge creations fought with unnatural coordination, suggesting some kind of hive mind or central control system. "Ilaran forces spotted ahead," called out one of the Special Forces operators. "They're pinned down by those artillery constructs on the ridge." Nakamura made a quick hand signal, and half his team broke off, using their jump jets to rapidly ascend the ridge and engage the artillery units. The rest continued forward toward the besieged Ilaran position. As they approached, Maya got her first close look at the Ilarans in person. They were smaller than humans, with slender builds adapted to their lower gravity world. Their skin, normally iridescent with shifting colors, was now uniformly pale blue, the color of extreme stress. They wore lightweight armor that seemed woefully inadequate against the Bioforge weapons. Maya activated her translation unit. "I am Dr. Maya Jo of Earth," she called out in the Ilaran language. "We're here to help evacuate your people." The Ilaran soldier's skin rippled with flashes of gold, surprise and relief. One of them, bearing insignia that Maya recognized as denoting leadership, approached cautiously. "I am Commander Nivan," the Ilaran replied, voice melodious despite the circumstances. "Your arrival is unexpected but desperately welcome. We cannot hold this position much longer." Nakamura joined the conversation. "My team will reinforce your defenses while we coordinate evacuation. How many civilians are in the center?" "Approximately 12 million, Nivan responded, causing Maya to inhale sharply. "Most of our transport ships have been destroyed. We were preparing for a final stand." "That's no longer necessary," Maya assured him. "Human transport vessels are entering orbit now. We need to establish a secure landing zone for them." Nivan's skin shifted to deep purple bands, doubt and concern. "The Bioforge controls most of our orbital defense grid. Your ships will be vulnerable during descent. Our fleet is working on that problem," Nakamura said confidently. "In the meantime, we need to reach the evacuation center and prepare your people for transport." A thunderous explosion rocked the ground beneath them. One of Nakamura's soldiers pointed to the sky, where a massive firefight was visible even through the atmosphere, the Thermopylae and its battle group engaging the Bioforge command ships directly. "The Vanguard breakthrough has begun," Nakamura noted with grim satisfaction. "Right on schedule." The Vanguard breakthrough was the centerpiece of Ross's battle plan, a direct, overwhelming assault on the Bioforge command structure, designed to disrupt their coordination and create a window for the evacuation. The success or failure of the entire operation hinged on this moment. "We need to move now," Nakamura urged. while their forces are responding to the orbital attack. Together with the Alaran defenders, they fought their way to the evacuation center, a massive complex capable of housing millions. Inside, Maya was struck by the sight of Alaran civilians packed into every available space, their skin shifting between colors of fear, hope, and desperation. Commander Nevan led them to the center's command post, where Alaran leaders were coordinating what they had believed would be their last defense. When Maya entered, all activity ceased as the Alarans stared at the humans, the Deathworlders who had come from across the stars to fight their war. An elderly Alaran stepped forward, skin shifting to formal patterns of purple and gold. "I am High Counselor Valen. On behalf of what remains of the Alaran Concord, I welcome you to what may be the last stronghold of our civilization." Maya bowed respectfully. "High Counselor, I am Dr. Maya Zhou, liaison for the Earth Expedition. This is Battalion Commander Kaito Nakamura, leader of our ground forces. We're here to evacuate as many of your people as possible." Valen's skin displayed patterns Maya had never seen in the research data, complex swirls that the translation software interpreted as profound gratitude beyond expression. "The evacuation must begin immediately," Nakamura said. "Our transport ships will be in position within 30 minutes. We need to organize your people into groups of no more than 10,000 for efficient loading." As the Alaran leaders mobilized to prepare their people, Maya's communication unit chimed with an incoming transmission from the horizon. "Dr. Zhou," came Colonel Ross's voice, tight with tension. "Status report?" "We've reached the main evacuation center," Maya replied. "Approximately 12 million Alarans are gathered here. We're preparing for transport ship arrival." "Good. The situation in orbit is fluid. We've managed to disable several of their command vessels, but they're adapting quickly." Ross paused. "We've also captured intact Bioforge data cores. Our analysts are working through them now, but what they're finding is disturbing." "What do you mean?" "The Bioforge isn't just waging war, Doctor. They're conducting massive-scale genetic harvesting operations. They're collecting Alaran genetic material and using it to create new bioweapons and combat constructs. It's like nothing we've ever seen. They're literally weaponizing the genetic heritage of an entire species." Maya felt sick. "Why? What could possibly justify such atrocity?" "That's still unclear. But we need to accelerate the evacuation. Our window of opportunity won't last forever." Ross's tone became even more urgent. "I'm dispatching additional ground forces to your location. Expect heavy reinforcements within the hour." The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. Human transport ships, protected by fighter escorts, descended to the secured landing zones around the evacuation center. Millions of Alaran civilians were loaded aboard in a carefully orchestrated operation that combined human efficiency with Alaran coordination. Throughout it all, the battle raged in orbit and across the surface of Algara II, the human fleet, fighting with the desperate intensity of those who know retreat is impossible, gradually gained the upper hand against the Bioforge forces. The Alaran defense ships, though few in number, fought with unexpected ferocity alongside their human allies. Maya worked tirelessly alongside the Alaran leaders, helping coordinate the evacuation and serving as the vital communication link between the two species. The color-shifting patterns of Alaran skin, conveying emotions and concepts that human language struggled to express, proved even more crucial than she had anticipated in maintaining clear communication during the crisis. 16 hours after the initial landing, nearly 8 million Alarans had been evacuated from the main center. Similar operations were underway at other locations across Algara II and its moon, coordinated by the Horizons Tactical Command. Maya was directing a group of elderly Alarans toward a waiting transport when Commander Nevan approached, his skin displaying urgent patterns of red and amber. "Dr. Zhou, High Counselor Valen requests your presence immediately. We've detected unusual activity from the Bioforge forces. Maya followed Nivan to the command post, where Nakamura was already in conference with Valen and other Ilaran leaders. A holographic display showed tactical information from across the planet. The Bioforge ground forces are withdrawing from multiple engagement zones, Nakamura explained as Maya entered. At first, we thought it was a response to our orbital successes, but the pattern is too systematic. They're consolidating around specific locations, Valen added, highlighting points on the display. All former Ilaran research facilities. Research into what? Maya asked. Medical technology. Primarily, Valen replied. The Ilaran Concord has made significant advances in cellular regeneration, genetic therapy, and longevity treatments. It's one of our greatest achievements. Maya's mind raced, connecting this new information with what Ross had shared about the Bioforge genetic harvesting. They're not just collecting your genetic material, she realized aloud. They're after your medical technology, the very advances you shared with humanity during our first contact. Before anyone could respond, an alarm blared from the communications console. Incoming transmission from the Bioforge command, announced an Ilaran technician, skin flashing with surprise. Put it through, Valen ordered after a moment's hesitation. The holographic display shifted to show a figure that made everyone in the room tense. The Bioforge commander was a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical components, a being whose original species was impossible to determine beneath layers of bioengineered enhancements. Multiple eyes of different sizes and apparent functions were embedded in an asymmetrical head, and what might have been a mouth was surrounded by sensory appendages that writhed independently. Representatives of the Ilaran Concord and the human military force. The creature spoke, its voice unexpectedly melodious despite its appearance. I am Archon Director Javis of the Bioforge Division, Supreme Evolutionary Authority of the Ascendancy. Maya exchanged glances with Nakamura, whose expression remained carefully neutral despite the shock of finally seeing their enemy. Your intervention was unanticipated, the Archon Director continued. No previous subject species has successfully summoned external assistance. This represents valuable experimental data. Experimental data? Valen's skin flushed deep red with outrage. You've slaughtered billions of my people. Necessary refinement of the genetic template, Chavez replied, with disturbing calm. The Ilaran cellular repair mechanisms are uniquely suited to our purposes. We have now collected sufficient samples and technical data to proceed with the next phase. Which is what exactly? Nakamura demanded. The multiple eyes of the Bioforge commander seemed to focus on the human officer with sudden intensity. The creation of the ultimate organism, a combat form capable of surviving any environment, regenerating from any injury, and adapting to any weapon. The Ilarans provided the regenerative capabilities we sought. And now, you humans have demonstrated remarkable combat efficiency despite your biological limitations. You too will contribute to the evolutionary perfection we seek. Maya felt cold dread washing over her. You're creating biological weapons, living weapons made from the genetic material of species you exterminate. Not weapons, evolution, Javis corrected. The galaxy is full of species that have reached evolutionary dead ends. We harvest their most advantageous traits and combine them into superior forms. It is the ultimate expression of natural selection. There's nothing natural about genocide, Maya shot back. The Archon Director's sensory appendages writhed in what might have been amusement. Your moral objections are irrelevant. We have achieved our primary objective with the Ilaran genetic material. As a professional courtesy, I am informing you that we will be withdrawing our forces from the Algara system within the next standard hour. You may keep whatever remnants of the Ilaran population you have managed to save. And then what? Nakamura pressed. You move on to your next target? Precisely. There are many species with desirable traits awaiting harvesting. The creature's eyes seemed to focus on Maya specifically. including, eventually, humanity. Your demonstration of combat capabilities has placed you much higher on our assessment index. Before anyone could respond, the transmission cut off. They're really withdrawing, Nakamura confirmed, checking tactical updates from the orbital battle. Our fleet reports Bioforge vessels disengaging and forming up for what appears to be a coordinated hyperspace jump. It's a tactical retreat, Maya said. They got what they came for, Ilaran medical technology and genetic samples. And now they know about us too. High Counselor Valen's skin had faded to a pale gray, a sign of deep shock and grief. All this death. For genetic samples? My people reduced to raw materials for their abominable experiments? Maya placed a gentle hand on the Ilaran leader's shoulder. Not all of your people. Thanks to your distress call and humanity's response, over 700 million Ilarans have been evacuated so far. Your civilization will continue. And the Bioforge will eventually target Earth, Nakamura added grimly. We need to prepare for that reality. Maya's communication unit chimed with an incoming transmission from Colonel Ross. Dr. Joe, our analysts have completed their preliminary examination of the captured Bioforge data cores. I'm sending you the summary now. This goes beyond anything we imagined. The data appeared on her personal display, a horrifying catalog of dozens of species the Bioforge had harvested over the past several centuries. Their genetic material and technological achievements incorporated into the ever-evolving Bioforge combat forms. Some species were listed as completely processed, a clinical euphemism for extinction. Colonel, Maya replied, the Bioforge commander just contacted us directly. They're withdrawing from the Algorith system. They claim they've achieved their objectives with the Ilarans. So we've observed, Ross confirmed. But this isn't over. According to the data we've recovered, the Bioforge operates on a long-term timeline. They identify species with desirable traits, harvest what they need, and then move on, often returning decades or centuries later if the species develops new characteristics worth collecting. Which means they'll eventually come for Earth, Maya concluded. Precisely. But we have an advantage they didn't anticipate. By intervening here, we've gained insight into their operations, technology, and biology that we can use to prepare defenses. Ross paused. The Strategic Council has authorized me to offer the surviving Ilaran sanctuary within our solar system. They have knowledge and capabilities that could help us prepare for the inevitable Bioforge return. Maya relayed this offer to High Counselor Valen, whose skin shifted to patterns of deep consideration. Your people have already done more than we could have hoped, Valen said finally. To accept sanctuary would make us dependents, a burden on your resources. Not dependents, Maya corrected. Allies. Partners. The Bioforge sees the galaxy as nothing but a genetic resource to be harvested. They won't stop with the Ilarans. Other civilizations will face the same fate, unless a coalition forms to oppose them. Valen considered this, complex color patterns rippling across his skin. You propose a defensive pact? I propose a pact of guardians, Maya said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Humanity and the Ilaran survivors united in common cause, not just for mutual defense, but to warn and protect other civilizations that might be targeted by the Bioforge. Nakamura nodded approvingly. From a military perspective, it makes sense. The Ilarans have advanced medical technology that could revolutionize our combat medicine. We have the warfare experience they lack. Together, we'd be stronger than either civilization alone. Valen's skin began to display patterns of cautious hope, gold and green spirals interwoven with amber. I will need to consult with the remaining conquered leadership, but, personally, I believe such an alliance would honor the sacrifices made here today. He extended a slender hand toward Maya. The Deathworlders came when we called. Perhaps the galaxy needs guardians as much as it needs healers. 2 days later, Aboard the Horizon in orbit around Algera 2, Colonel Ross convened a formal meeting between the senior human commanders and the surviving Alaran leadership. The Bioforge forces had indeed withdrawn completely from the system, though long-range sensors were monitoring their hyperspace trajectory to identify potential future targets. The evacuation had continued around the clock, with nearly 1.1 billion Alarans successfully transported to safety, some aboard human vessels, others in their own ships now protected by the solar fleet. Plans were already underway for temporary settlements in the outer Sol system, with Europa and Mars offering to host the majority of the refugees. Maya sat beside Ross as he formally presented the proposed Pact of Guardians to the assembled leaders. Ambassador Alara Thos, who had broadcast the original distress call and had finally arrived from a hidden communication outpost, represented the Alaran diplomatic corps. "The Strategic Council of Earth has unanimously approved the Pact of Guardians," Ross announced. "This will represent a fundamental shift in human policy, from minimal intervention to active protection of civilizations threatened with extinction. The Alaran people will be granted sanctuary within our solar system for as long as necessary, with full autonomy and self-governance." Ambassador Thos's skin displayed formal patterns of acceptance and gratitude. The surviving conquered leadership has also approved this pact. "We offer in exchange our medical knowledge, particularly in cellular regeneration and genetic therapy, which may help humanity prepare defenses against bioforged biological weapons." The formal signing ceremony was broadcast across both fleets, the beginning of the first true interspecies alliance in human history. For Maya, watching from the side of the ceremonial chamber, it represented the culmination of a journey that had begun with a desperate signal in the darkness. After the ceremony, Ross approached her. "The Strategic Council has requested that you serve as Earth's first ambassador to the Alaran refugee government," he said. "Your understanding of their language and culture makes you uniquely qualified." Maya was momentarily speechless. "I'm a xenolinguist, Colonel, not a diplomat. And yet you've already accomplished more diplomacy than any human in history," Ross pointed out. "You recognized the Alaran distress call. You convinced the Council to send the fleet. You proposed the Pact of Guardians. Who better to help forge this new alliance?" Before Maya could respond, Ambassador Thos joined them, her skin displaying informal patterns of friendship. "Dr. Joe, I must personally thank you for your role in saving my people. When we sent our distress call into the darkness, we hoped for assistance but never imagined a response of such magnitude." "We couldn't stand by and watch an entire civilization be exterminated," Maya replied. "Many might have," those countered. "It would have been easier, safer for your people to ignore our plea. Instead, you risked your fleet and your lives for a species you barely knew." The ambassador's skin rippled with complex patterns that the translation software struggled to interpret, something approximating profound existential gratitude. "The Bioforge will return eventually," Ross said soberly. "Not just to finish what they started with the Alarans, but to target Earth as well. They've identified us as a species with desirable traits for their experiments. Then we have work to do," Maya said with newfound resolve. "Building defenses, establishing communication protocols with other potentially vulnerable civilizations, creating an early warning network. The foundations of the Pact of Guardians." Those agreed. "From this day forward, no civilization need face extinction alone. The call will be answered." As Maya looked out the viewport at the blue-green world of Algera 2 below, a world nearly lost to an implacable enemy, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had evolved on a harsh world that bred warriors, creatures capable of terrible violence but also profound compassion. For millennia, those traits had shaped human history on Earth, for better and worse. Now, those same traits had propelled humanity 70 light-years from home to fight for a species they barely knew, risking everything to prevent a genocide. The Alarans had called them Deathworlders, but perhaps being forged in adversity had given humanity exactly the strength needed to become guardians. The Bioforge would return someday, seeking to harvest the genetic potential of Earth and what remained of Ilaran civilization. But they would find not isolated, vulnerable prey, but united defenders, Deathworlders and healers standing together against the darkness. And if another civilization somewhere in the vast galaxy sent a desperate plea for help, the Pact of Guardians would answer the call.